All right, it's been kind of a busy offseason up to this point for the Houston Texans. They made a lot of bigger moves early on in the cycle. Some of it got some criticism. And at the time, we broke down the overall really smart strategy the Texans have been using. And now, over the past few days, the Texans have made another really good move. It's kind of flying under the radar, but this was a phenomenal deal by Casario and company. We'll get into that in just 1 second. But first, I'm Nick. That is Andrew. And this is Saturday Morning Inspection. All right, without further ado, let's get into this report involving the Texans. This really smart move we highlighted here. Again, this is a couple days ago, and this is according to Jordan Schultz over at Schultz Report, insider, of course, following all things NFL. Breaking, the Texans are signing former Colts linebacker EJ Speed to a 1-year, $5 million deal. Sources tell at NFL on Fox that $5 million, we'll get into that in just a second, is actually a little bit more than what the Texans are really paying when you get into the numbers. Speed, since 6 seasons in Indy, and is coming off a career best year with 142 tackles in 15 games, including 7 tackles for loss and 5 pass breakups. So the way EJ Speed's contract is currently situated, right? There's a lot of bonuses and things like that, but realistically, the Texans are in for about a little over $3 million the way it currently sits. So let's keep that number in mind: $3.5 million, a little over $3 million. Anytime you make any sort of deal, you always want to look at what you're allocating towards a player versus their value. What are you getting in return? And websites like overthecap.com, SpotTrack's another really good one. What they do is they break down a player's production, their age, their position, the market, all these factors, and come up with a valuation. And one thing overthecap.com does that I think we really appreciate on this channel is they actually do it on a week by week basis, so you can see how a player is performing versus their contract. And here's where it gets very interesting. Let's go ahead and go to this next chart here. So you can see here, the valuation is the blue dots right there all across the screen. And right there, you can see the brown and the brownish, the greenish stripe right in the middle, a little south of $4 million there. Then, of course, we're talking contract dollars, salary cap allocated to EJ Speed. But you can see the valuation here week by week during the games that Speed played for the Colts last year in the NFL. And you can just see across the board, these numbers are crazy good. Week 1, his valuation, his performance, equivalent to an $18 million performer. Every single game, week 10 all the way up to 15 million again, but every single game he is well above what he's paid. And this is why this is such an incredible deal for the Houston Texans. When you look at a lot of these kind of charts, players that have high valuations, usually they kind of, they have some duds. They have some real underperformers where they really stink up the joint, mix in a couple top flight games. Here, Speed is consistently above what he's getting paid, and he has those top flight games, those dominating performances. Those are the kind of moves that are really important when you get them on the cheap. You're getting a solid baseline player to come in and be a quality player on this defense, while also getting that high ceiling potential, those all-star, superstar kind of games. Basically, what the Texans got here is no downside, right? The baseline performance of EJ Speed last year is already more than they're going to pay him this year. So based on that, it's just already a great deal. But his upside, as you can see on the chart here, is around 15 to 18 million bucks. This is the greatest low risk, high reward. In fact, it's no risk, high reward move by the Houston Texans. Phenomenal job by Nick Casario and company. All right, Miles, I'm curious what your thoughts are on this move. But first, Texans fans, in the comment section below, we're getting closer and closer to the draft, just a few short weeks away now. So let us know in the comment section, what's one player you want the Houston Texans to draft more than any other this year? It doesn't have to be a first round guy. It could be any round of the draft. Give us one player you want the Texans to pick up. Maybe he's a college favorite of yours, or maybe you think he'd be a great fit. Whatever the reasons, give us that player in the comment section below. But Miles, over to you. What are your thoughts on this move and just everything with the Houston Texans?
Yeah, Nick, I think first and foremost, we have to get into the question everybody is asking. With a name like EJ Speed, how fast is he? And he's actually like pretty quick. He's not like record breaking speed. We ran a 4.640 at the combine. So, Texans fans, there's your answer. He's pretty quick. So, he does live up to the name a little bit. But nevertheless, I really think the contract here, the move here, is like you lay it out with the graph. The graph really showcases everything pretty beautifully there. Is the fact that he never dips, but his level of play is never below the average salary of what the Texans are probably going to pay him. He's like always playing above what that mark is. So for the fact they're able to reel him in and get him in there and do such a great job in that contract, there's really nothing that can go wrong here other than, knock on wood, he like gets injured and doesn't get to play this season. I think the level of play that he brings to the field, and it's not like a one-hit wonder type of guy. This guy been around for a couple seasons right now. I think 6 and back-to-back seasons that he's been in the NFL thus far. He's been around the block, so he's consistently a high-level performer doing a lot of really great things. And I think when you look at speed, the things he brings to the table are just some things that the Texans really could have used. So when you talk about the Texans, this is a team, a lot of young guys, a lot of good stuff going on. But when you're thinking about, where are they as far as, being run defenders, things like that, they're like middle of the pack. They're not super good. The defense was decent last year overall. I believe they're ranked actually top 10, but in the run defense department, they're about right in the middle. So when you bring in a guy like EJ Speed to this team, I think that's something that he really amps up. He had over a 71.5 run defense grade last year. He had a lot of games over 80. Just did a lot of really good stuff in the run defense department. So I think that's an aspect that he can bring. That downhill runner has decent size, about 6'4", 230. So he can stop the run. He can do a lot of good stuff. Over the years, he's had some good pass rushing seasons. Last year wasn't his best pass rushing season. Overall, the years before that, he had two back-to-back pretty good 69.1 and 76.6 pass rush season. So overall, this is a guy, a really solid player the last 3 years, really solid run defender. So I just think what the Texans did here was bring in an underrated linebacker, something that, D'Amico Ryans knows all about. He knows the linebacker position inside and out. Bring in a guy that's going to help this team in the one place they were a little bit deficient on the defensive side of the ball. That's run defense. And just bring in a guy that does a lot of good stuff for not a whole lot of money. So when you look at it, these are the kind of moves you love as a fan, where it's like, we got a good player. He doesn't cost a whole lot. He's playing over his value. I mean, what is not to like about a move like this? This is showing the Texans there's a method to the madness here. They're bringing in, guys with the mentality they want. They want these young, outspoken leaders. They got those guys through the draft, the Derek Stingley's, the Andersons. They've got CJ Stroud. They've got a lot of young, outspoken leaders on this team. Now you're bringing in good value guys. Pay your guys. Pay your Derek Stingley's. Pay your Anderson. Pay your CJ Stroud. Bring in solid players like EJ Speed who way outperform their contracts. That's how you build a winning football team, and that is how you break out really quickly and make a huge jump to playoff contenders. I think the Texans did that with this latest move, and I think this linebacking core for the Texans is about to be a ton better this coming season.
Yeah, it's one of those weird paradoxes, and you kind of hit it on there a little bit, is that everyone sort of expects that in order to win titles, you need to go out and throw all kinds of money and get the hugest big name guys in the world to come into your team. The reality is, if you look at most championship teams going back, I mean, almost a decade and a half, it's a lot of these players that, just like you said, that are outperforming their contract. Everyone looks at Saquon Barkley with the Philadelphia Eagles last season. Obviously, had a great season, but the real hero of that team was on defense. That was linebacker Zach Baum, who basically played like an NFL Defensive Player of the Year, making $3 million or whatever his salary was. It was at that order of magnitude. Again, when you have a guy playing at all pro level and he's costing you $3 million, good things are going to happen. The Patriots did this for a number of years. The Chiefs have done this for a number of years, right? The Baltimore Ravens, especially on defense with some of the veterans and pass rushers they bring into the fold, have done this for a number of years. This is one of the secret sauces to making deep playoff runs, is having players playing above, well above what they're costing you against a salary cap, because obviously when you do that, you free up dollars to make other moves to add more depth, to shore up weaknesses, or really accelerate strengths. It just gives you more flexibility, right? And I think that's what the Houston Texans have really done here with the addition of EJ Speed. But I also think you bring up a great point in terms of run defense, because if you look at Speed's performance, he's had 3 straight seasons with double-digit stuffs, right? He's had back-to-back seasons with over 100 plus tackles with the Indianapolis Colts. He knows the division, right? He knows the competition. He knows the landscape. He's going to come in. Is he going to be a superstar? I mean, the maximum is there, right? The ceiling is there. We saw a couple games where he was playing at that level. But realistically, and last season was proof of that, you're not going to get that week in and week out. But you're just going to get a good, solid performer who does his job and executes at a high level. It reminds me, honestly, of D'Amico Ryans when he played for the Houston Texans, of course, way back in the day. So I think this is an example of the Texans doing a really good job. Did they absolutely need another linebacker? Probably not, but picking up another key piece to add to some defensive flexibility, to get another linebacker to do different things, give some depth if someone gets hurt, or if Christian Harris, doesn't develop the way they like to in the long term. However you want to look at it, getting a quality player at a massive discount, especially who's from your division, who's a veteran, good locker room guy, seems to maybe even be on the upswing in his career. This is just the kind of move. It doesn't get the headlines. It doesn't make all the noise. It doesn't get the talking heads on ESPN or Fox Sports talking for days. But these are the kind of deals that really, when push comes to shove, playoff time, which honestly, we've seen it, Texans back-to-back years, they're likely heading to another playoff spot. These kind of deals here are what turn those early exits into deep postseason pushes. I love this move by Nick Caserio and the Houston Texans.